Hi and welcome to my wallpaper and painting channel. My name is Spencer Colgan and today I'm going to go over an interesting project with you so that I can incorporate all of the things that I do into one video and one job. Today I'm doing an accent wall in wall covering and 3 accent walls in painting. So it's a great way to show you how you can do this too. This is a paper product from Designer Wallpapers. It's a 36-inch product and we will be putting it on this wall. Okay? Now let me show you how to prep the wall. The wall had flat paint on it. If you put wall covering on flat paint, the person is going to be very angry when they go to remove it down in a few years. Let me show you what you put on the wall. This is a product from Roman. It's RX35 or 999. And you can put it on with a brush. I suggest you do it with a roller. You cut in the sides. You don't have to be perfect. You protect your base molding because you don't want to get it on there. And of course, you have to cut it at the top, which I already did. Okay, so this is frame 2 of our accent room. We're accenting the one wall in wall covering and the rest of the 3 walls in 2 different paints. It's a great opportunity to show you a couple of tricks. Number 1, we're going to start cutting this wall. The term cutting refers to drawing straight lines with a brush. And so we're going to cut the wall against the ceiling. Let's do it. When we do that, we're creating a little texture on the wall with a brush. But since we're rolling the wall, we don't want to have 2 different textures, right? One, can you come over here? I don't want them, I'm probably blacking out here. Silhouetting. You don't want the texture from a brush and then a roller right next to it. And so you want to use a roller with this process. Let me show you what I mean. Okay. So you need a tray. You need a bucket on your ladder. And then we're going to clean our roller. So before the video I did this. I put tape on my roller because even if it's brand new, you get lint on your tape. You get the idea. If you don't want to do it like that, take a piece of tape, put it on something stationary, and simply do it like this. Okay, you get the idea. Let's get to it. But you do want to clean your roller. Okay, I don't care if it was in plastic, right from the store. Now I'm going to show you how to cut. Let's go to it. You might want to wet your brush before you start using it to keep the bristles a little damp. Why is that? It's easier to clean in the end. Not wet, damp. Okay. Bring them in close, show them how we cut. Like I said, it's a 2-step process. We're going to be using 2 tools to do this right. So I got my brush loaded up and my roller. Floors are covered. Let's do it. Can you zoom in?
Yeah.
A steady hand, control your breathing. Pull your brush. Biggest asset here, confidence. You can do it. Okay? Now the brush puts on this paint at its own consistency. And of course, with the texture of a brush, with bristles. If you want to see the mechanics on how to do this, and little tips and tricks on how to do this right, I have a video called The Mechanics of cutting in. And it shows you how to use the brush in this regard and a couple of tricks on how to do it. Okay. You want to get all those crannies filled in. Now you may not be able to see this, but one coat is not enough. It's the paint is showing through. Now you're going to take your roller, because you're going to ultimately finish the room with a roller, just like this. As close to the ceiling as you can get. You don't want to hit the ceiling with a very colorful orange, so keep it away. You see how I'm coming real close to that? I'm within a ½ an inch, okay? Because you want it all to look like it was done with a roller. And there you have it. We're going to be cutting down the side, right? And so I use tape, and I suggest you do it too, if you want perfect lines. Now come in close. Show them how the last painter got paint on the woodwork. Okay? You can see that, right? So now you can't get that paint off. What you got to do is either paint the thing white again and cut a straight line, or go with the mistake and simply bring your tape just past the mistake. Just past the mistake to make it look like a new, perfectly straight line. Although it won't be in the corner, it'll just be beyond the mistake, but you won't be able to see it. It's not what people look for when they come into a room. But a squiggly, ugly paint line, yes, they see that. Now, what I suggest is that you use clear caulking so that the paint does not bleed through. So you can put clear caulking here, right against this tape line, so that the paint doesn't get in. However, I'm just going to embed it in there. And I trust that it won't bleed. Okay, so now I'm going to start my paint. Just come in. I'm starting here. You don't want to start right in the corner and have dripping paint all over the place, right? Bring it right in there. Mash it in there good. You're talking about a textured surface here. Okay? And if you look close, you can see how the brush skips over the texture. So you got to push it in there good. That's why I suggest you use a nice clear caulking. Now, my woodwork is all covered, but I'm not going to be so, I'm not going to put a lot of paint on the bottom, because it can really it never dry, and I see I'm really like putting all the paint up here, and then I bring it down, look, with barely enough paint on it, and you'll understand why when you do this. It's a little different than the side. I don't want the paint sitting where gravity is pulling it right at the edge of the paint, so I'm using less so that there's no dripping, there's no excess. Okay. Moving right along. Start a couple of inches above, bring it down. Just glide those bristles into this is your main area, right against that tape. You can always hit this with a roller, which is what I'm going to do. I'll show you. Just get the color on there. I will hit it with the roller after this. Very good. Now, I'm coming up to a wall that's going to be a different color here. I'm going to be touching up this woodwork. What I will do is I'll show you how to do this accent wall, the next one, which is a different color. I'll show you how to do it. So this wall is not going to be orange. Watch this. I'm going to bring my paint onto the next wall. And I'll explain why. In 2 hours, I can put paint tape over it to make a nice, crisp line. So I just bring my color onto the next wall, get it in that corner. And when I paint this wall, I'm going to put the tape right on this wall. Give it at least 2 hours to set up. Okay, so now we're starting the wall. We're going to put the second coat on it, and it's dry. Now, I went around the top, I cut my top again, and remember to roll it as close to the ceiling as you can with a small roller. I'll show you, just stay right there. Remember, we said that we need to get the roller to match the stipple effect. If you're using a brush and a roller on the same wall, you have to go through hoops in order to make it all look like one. So you go next to the ceiling as close as you can with the roller. Okay, 1 second. Now, we're going to start rolling our wall. I load up my roller. Don't put too much because we're doing over a door. I'm going to start in the middle. If you go too close to the bottom, you'll have too much paint close to the bottom. Up, down, finish. 50% overlap. Please come behind me. I already did this, so I'm going to overlap it one more time. I'm overlapping. That's 50%. Overlap. Start as close to the bottom as you can. Overlap. Do it again. I'm turning the roller around for convenience. Overlap. Look at that. One direction. Down. Finish down or up, but definitely in one direction. Finish. Pull it off. Overlap. Start at the bottom, go up. Now, why do I say start at the bottom now? Now my roller doesn't have a ton of paint on it. Well, if it did, I'd start in the middle. Up, down, finish that down. Overlap. Okay. Mechanics about a roller. This is the point of contact between your arm and the paint roller. If you press on the roller, you will cause a line on this side of the roller. Why? Because the pressure coming from your arm is resting on here. So let me show you exaggerated. Come in close. Show them that line. If you put too much pressure on your roller, you will have a ridge here. Even at the pressure, by using both hands on the roller and judging that your roller should have equal pressure on it. Now, if I want to put more pressure on the left side, all I got to do is, with the wrist, you can't see it, but you can feel it. You just put a little more pressure on it by using your wrist. Okay. I'm starting in the middle. I go all the way to the top. I'm being very careful here not to hit my woodwork. Orange is not a color you want to try to get off of white. Okay, I'm overlapping, come back down. Okay. Take my roller, go sideways, get onto that electric, start at the top, go down. Start again and go down. Okay. Look at my hand. I'm guiding. This hand is keeping the roller from doing this. Very nice. Okay. And that's pretty much about it. Notice how I didn't start on the column, okay? It's just something we as painters do. I don't know why. Actually, I do. It's so that you don't put too much paint in that area. You see now how you join it? Go up and down. Go up, down, up, down, overlap. Now, if you're a new painter or a do-it-yourselfer, let me show you a mistake that you're making. Watch this. You're killing the roller. If your roller looks beat up like that at the edge, where you're pushing all of the paint out of it, you're making a huge mistake. See, I can't even do it right now because I have so much paint on my roller. But if you, please don't do that. Your roller should always have, you should always be able to see wetness on the edge of it. Excuse me. Okay, now, you see how beat up that roller is right now from pushing on it? Don't do that. Let's get it all wet again. You see how now the fibers in the roller are separating where you can see crevices? That's what you want. Now here's a tip. When you take it out of the pan, look, it's going to drip. So keep doing this. Turn it. So this way, when it's ready to drip, it doesn't drip. It's going in the other direction. Keep turning it, just like that, until you get to the wall. Now, suggestion, when you're painting near an adjacent wall, go slow. This roller is spitting little pieces of paint that you can't see. Well, you'll see it at the end of your job when you say, what a nice job I did, and you'll see all little orange specks on this wall. To avoid that, slow. Pressure, but slow. Okay, very important here. For you folks who have very small woodwork lips, please come in close, show them what they mean. You can see that the last painter didn't use tape because a lot of painters think, I don't need tape, but they get the wall paint on the woodwork. Now this is 1/8 of an inch, not a lot of room to work with. So it becomes a difficult task, but nonetheless, if you want to be perfect, this is how you do it. Get that tape border right in that corner and use your thumbnail. Push it down, hold it. You want to prevent bleeding. When I paint this, there's a chance that this blue paint is going to get under my tape. It's just the way life works. So you take some caulking. Now on a previous job we needed a bigger opening. So ideally for this job you want a nice small opening. But we're going to work with this if we can. Let's see. Okay. So I'm using clear caulking. Now I suggest that you always use clear, although in this case you could use white. And why is that? Clear will take on the color of your paint. Now it looks white, but it turns transparent. Okay? Just get it in there, because when you remove this, if you don't remove it quickly enough, you'll have what's called bridging. And bridging takes place when the paint on your wall and the tape over your woodwork become one item. And instead of the tape coming off nice and easily, giving you a nice straight line, which is what you intended, but you weren't thinking about it, you went to lunch, and you came back, or you came back the next day, and you thought, all I gotta do is pull off the tape. Well, you're gonna be pulling off the wall paint, okay? Okay, now, okay folks, you got a wet paintbrush, you're on the job. If you're a painter, I suggest you get one of these. If not, you're a homeowner, you use something similar. Come close. Your paintbrush is wet. We're using 3 different colors here. You're not gonna have 3 different brushes. Take the paintbrush, spin it. Okay, now, I got a lot of paint on there. Okay, coming close now. I just changed my brush. Did you see what I did? I'll show you again. You want to get that paint in there. Don't just go like this parallel with the woodwork. No, push that brush in that corner, okay? See what I'm doing? Now, watch this. I'm only doing this once. I'm giving it 2 coats. That's a thick coat of paint, what I just put on. It's ready to go. Here's what I mean again. Get that paint in there. Push that paint in there. Nice wet brush. Okay. We're changing the rules a little. We're going close to the border with a lot of paint. Reason being is more paint keeps the color, right? Instead of when it's thinned out, but you gotta be real, because of the way my body is positioned over this, it doesn't always do a straight line. Now don't pull the paint off by going over it too much. Watch, I just loaded up the brush one direction. Okay, let's move on. Now I'm gonna give myself 5 inches because when I go over it with the roller, I'm just gonna come down right near the border. All right, now I'm ready to bring more paint on it, one direction. I started right to left, that's it. Okay. And you'll start to see the method of this madness. Pushing hard. I mean, if you want to do a really nice job, I suggest you do it this way. Okay. Okay. Beautiful. I'm using a 3-inch angle sash brush. It's not a Purdy. I think this one's a Worcester. And I think the UK has these as well. Pushing in that corner. Again, don't worry about the caulking being part of what you're spreading here. Caulking and paint have it's the same base. going to dry together. It's paintable caulking. Okay, very nice. Now, on a subsequent frame, we'll show you how to do this accent wall, this line here. I'm just going to get in there, just start my line, but not do any more than that. So, we want to get as close to that line with the roller, right? Come in nice and close and show them as I pull. Como estoy empujando la cinta.
Sí.
Móstrale. Sometimes we don't use tape, and this is one of those times. It's a little too much time to put tape here. There's not enough of a lip for it to attach, so we just freehand it. Okay, so now we've allowed the paint to dry at least 2 hours. Okay, with a fan on it. It's a little humid in here, so we had the fan going on it, and it feels pretty good. So there's always a risk when you're putting tape on paint, you know, even when it's older. But right now we're going to attempt to put a nice crisp line on here by doing what I'm about to show you. This is a 3M hand masker. They retail in the continental USA for about $60. But if you tell them you know Spencer Colgan, you can get it for $70. All I'm doing is going right up to the corner. And just pushing it right up against there. Now we want to be careful because, like I said, it's new paint, all right? So you don't have to make contact with all the tape. What I mean by that is the only thing that has to be touching is the edge of the tape. Now, this is really what's going to, if I don't do this, this is all going to bleed underneath it. It's clear caulking, it goes on white, but it dries clear. Push this in so the caulking stops coming out. Okay, I'm ready for my paint. Come in close. Lots of paint, don't stretch it out too much. That's it. I'm going to pull toward me. Can you zoom in there?
Yeah.
Okay, show them the line. You want to make this spin your roller. Very simple. It's all contained and you just hose off whatever residue is on the grass. So now we're at the part of the job, about 5 hours into our painting, to do the wall covering. The object of engineering a layout is to achieve symmetry. Take a look at this. So now, we want symmetry, right? But we also don't want to waste paper. So we measure the wall, and we come up with 163.5 inches. Put that number down. And then we measure the length of our wall covering and come up with 27.25 inches. And so I divide the number of my wallpaper with inches into the number of my inches of my wall, and it tells me that I'll need 6 sheets of this paper. Now that is rare, that it comes out exactly to the number of sheets needed. You might say, that's great, just start hanging here, right? And you'll only have to hang 6 sheets. But what if my paper is slightly short? Then I'll wind up with a space at the end, right, like this. But I won't. But these are things you should consider when engineering a room. Ideally, we have what's happening right now. We start here and we end on the very end of the wall. I can tell you this, with expansion, I'm going to be a little over. And so I'm going to go with it. So I'm going to start in my left corner and hang toward my right, and I suspect that I will have about this much in the end, about 2 inches, because of expansion. Each of the sheets will expand when I apply the glue, and I'll show you the process. But if you didn't have this scenario, here's what you would do. You determine, where is it best to start? Should I start over here? Because you'll save more paper if you start here. But on the end, you're going to wind up sometimes with 3 inches, 4 inches, and it can really throw off the eyes if it's not symmetrical. So ideally, you want the same amount of paper on the first strip as you have on the last. And the way you do that is to start in the middle. If I start in the middle, I'll have an equal number of wall covering to my left as I do on the right. But here's the problem with that. When you engineer the room, you have to figure out how much of a sheet will you have on the left. If it's only a couple of inches, don't do it. That looks silly when you have 2 or 3 inches here. I recommend that you put in the full sheet right here, and at the end you have a small piece. If it's too small. I don't like having a small sliver on the left and on the right. In that case, I would just have the sliver on one side. But if you have at least 6 inches, then I would do symmetry. I would start in the middle. Here's another thing you can do. There are 2 ways to start in the middle. You can start by putting the middle of the sheet in the middle of the wall. Or, if it works out better, start a line in the middle and start hanging your full sheets to the left and to the right of that line. You have to determine where it lands, and the way you do that is to take your tape measure and simply do this. You make marks on the wall. Here's a roll of wall covering. This is a template. You just go like this. And then that's how you determine. You make little marks on the wall. Okay, we're going to start hanging. If you have any questions, leave them in the bottom. Now you're laying out your wallpaper. I have here what's called a drop match. So you have this leaf. This is the repeat on it. We have a 36-inch repeat. That's a lot of waste. That means that when I put up one sheet and I cut it at the bottom, the next 36 inches is usually waste, unless you have a door over which you can use it. Here we're doing an accent wall. We can't use a 3-foot piece. We could, but that's another video for another story. But generally speaking, we have a 3-foot piece of waste after we cut the first roll. So now how do you save wallpaper and you avoid wasting 3 feet of paper? I'll tell you how. This sheet is from the first roll right here. Now, if you want to definitely waste 3 feet every single time you cut it, take the paper from the first roll. Take the next sheet from the very roll from which you cut the sheet you're trying to match. That's how you waste paper. If you don't want to waste the paper, take another roll, find your match, and cut from the second roll or a different roll accordingly. Chances are you will be able to find your match from the second roll or a different roll sooner than you're going to find it than wasting 36 inches of paper. You know what I'm saying? Here's my first sheet from my first roll. If I take the matching sheet from the same roll, I'm sure to lose 36 inches of wall covering. However, if I take it from a different roll, you know, not all wall covering that has this pattern starts at the same place. It doesn't do that. In other words, the next roll does not necessarily start where this roll started. So you take the second roll, you open up 2 rolls, you have 2 rolls going at the same time, and you try to match it, and you might find that from your second roll, you matched it within 8 inches from the top. Okay, so now, obviously we're hanging the first sheet, right? And you remember when we engineered the wall, we determined that it was good enough to start right at the edge, okay? But you never want to trust the edge of a room to be straight, so you want to have a level here so that your first piece can be just right. Now this is really good quality wallpaper, and the way we determine that is its integrity, its constitution. And this is something that's not going to tear easily. And that's what you want. There's nothing like hanging wallpaper that rips easily. If you live in the continental USA, this is a $2 smoother. It's not used for wall covering. It's designed for painting so that you can, it's called a paint edger. You get them at Harbor Freight. What I like about it is that it's super thin and doesn't leave marks on the wall. I sand it, I round out my edges to take off the corners that are sharp, because otherwise they can tear wallpaper. And there you have it. That's your first sheet. Here's another smoother that I use for thicker wall coverings. The thinner the wall covering, the thinner your smoother. If you use this thing on thin wall covering, you can go through it. Okay, so let me try to cut this thing. Okay. I have a sea sponge. I'll get that out. You want to wipe down your wall covering, make sure that there's no glue residue on it. There's nothing like getting to the end of a job and you look at your wall covering newly installed from different angles and you see all marks from glue. Customers don't like it, and paper hangers don't like it either. One last smoothing out. You can't see them from the camera, but there are some air pockets in this. I let the wall covering book for at least 5 minutes, according to manufacturing instructions. Rather than leaving this in here, match it up. At least now you have parameters. Doesn't have to be exact. But you want to overcut it, and that's the point. So here we are at the last piece, but here you go. And remember I spoke about expansion. Now my measurements told me that I would need exactly 6. And when I say exactly, I mean exactly 6. It measured out exactly. So I want to show you a little reality with regard to something called expansion. When you see this part on the blue wall here, that wasn't in my calculation. So if you divide this inch by 6, each piece expanded, that's about 1.25 inches. Each piece expanded 1/6 of 1.25 inches. Okay, so just know that when you're hanging this wall covering, and I'm talking any wall covering, it all has a backing that absorbs glue. If it absorbs glue, it expands. Okay, keep that in mind. So what are some of the warnings? Don't let it book longer than the manufacturer says to. And so here's your expansion. So don't leave your wall coverings booking too long. It's okay if you go over a minute or 2, but if you're going to leave it for a half an hour, you're going to find yourself with a problem. The reason why I'm using water here is because it reduces the friction on the face of the wall covering. So this heat that I'm causing may scratch it were it not for the water. The water is acting as a barrier between my smoother and the face of the paper. So you'll see that the seams are a little stubborn. And that's because the seams are competing around these bumps, up and down, up and down, up and down. And this is what I do. I wet it a little. You see the difference now? If you rewind your video a second or 2, you'll see that they were being stubborn. They wouldn't lay down. What I'm doing is forcing it into the nooks and crannies. Hanging paper over texture is a little more time consuming and a bit more challenging. I get the corner in there, see how I'm making that line? Okay, and now I'm gonna break off a new blade. Okay. In the corner, You want to push your finger in that corner and see. You want to be able to see the corner, okay? And you want to score that. If you don't have it cut in the corner, it's going to make a very ugly edge. Now, watch what I'm doing with this blade. I'm cutting in 4-inch spurts, aren't I? You know why? Some wall covering, not this one, tears. It tears when it gets wet. And so if you bring your blade close to the action, meaning in toward the wall, and you go in fast spurts, for some reason it doesn't tear. If you want to check your work after you do your job, take a look at your job on an angle with a light, okay? That's how I want you to do it, and you'll see all your imperfections. Okay. Never push your smoother up in a corner. You'll go right through the wall covering. Put your finger in there and make your corner with your finger. Okay. Now, penetrate that corner first. You'll hear it, and then pull 1, 4 inches, 4 inches, 4 inches, 4 inches. Real close. Okay, you see the nice cut there? Brand new blade, but even if it's brand new with some wall coverings, it'll tear it. So you want to go real close. You want to actually pull it as close as the angle of the object against which you're cutting. So not like this. This would be a 90. This is a 45. You want to go really close, like a 15-degree angle or less. The flatter, the better. You know what I think happens? You're using more of the blade. The closer you get to making the blade flat, you're using more blade to cut it, not just the tip, right? So here you'd be using the tip, but here you got a little more blade action going on. Okay. Okay, we're coming down to the bottom. I'm 4 inches away from the bottom. I have not finished my cut. There's a reason why. As you get to the bottom, the angle at which you're cutting has to change in order for you to get the blade in there. But then we have the tearing situation, remember? Once you start using the pointed part of the blade, you run the risk of tearing your wall covering. So watch this. See where I'm at there? Let me show you how to finish it off. Simply go to the bottom and go upward. Just like you did at the top. And there you have it. Look at how beautiful. Got to make those lines perfect. Humidity is the cause for this. Just hold your breath while you're doing it. Come out perfect. Don't talk too much. Okay? You can do this. It's not too hard. Right brush, steady hand. Watch the action. Keep your eyes on the action. Don't take your eyes off. Hold your breath. Okay. Same thing. Almost there. You don't want too much paint on the edge. It'll really make it look bad. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Go in the opposite direction. It's textured. Okay. One more try. You see what's happening? If we put too much paint, we'll flood those little crevices and it'll go beyond the crevices. So, just a little more. Just a little more. Just a little more. This cheap woodwork, they don't give you a lot of lip on the edge. So, consequently, there's very little room for error, as you can see. Okay. This cheap woodwork, they don't give you a lot of lip on the edge. So, consequently, there's very little room for error, as you can see. Okay. So here we are, we're done. And this is the last clip of this video series. We started over here and we hung 6 sheets all the way over there to the end of the wall. And we do 3 passes. The first time is to get it on the wall. The second time is to get the air out. And the third pass is at the end of the job, where we just set the seams to their final place because the paper keeps moving because of the air escaping. And it kind of constricts, and so we don't want it to separate. So we do what I call nurse the seams. Come back, finesse the seams for the last time, and set them down with my smoother. Anyway, that is, it reminds me of the old Shea Stadium for the New York Mets. And you just take a look at this nice crisp line. This line we did a couple of times to get it just right, okay? It's a textured wall, and so it's not easy to get your brush in there, making a nice straight line with all of the bumps. Okay, we touched up our paint as you saw in one of the frames. If you see a lighter color, it's drying. And then over here, we simply continued with the orange right up there where it meets the blue. My favorite part of the job is right here, the most difficult. Just shine the light in there and show them that line right on the right hand side of that casing. That took a lot of... There you have it. If you have any questions about the paint job or the installation, just ask me and I'll let you know. Happy New Year 2020, here we come. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel and I'll see you on the next video.